More than 300 Sewage and Water Board employees were at their posts when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans on August 29, 2005. And they stayed through the catastrophic flooding that engulfed 80% of New Orleans after the levees broke. These dedicated and heroic employees were first responders providing critical emergency sewerage and water board system restorations, while in many instances fighting for their own survival and the survival of others. Their valiant efforts must not be forgotten but preserved for austerity as a testament to the courage, tenacity, and dedication of these employees in the face of overwhelming odds. Where were you on August 29th, 2005?
August 29th, 2005, I was at the Sewage and Water Board Central Yard, which is located in Gentilly, Franklin Avenue, and I-610. I had a group of employees that work in my department, and we hunkered down in Central Yard, expecting to be there 2-3 days at the most.
Mm-hmm. So what happened?
What I recall is that night it was tremendous rainfall, wind, and just relentless. We woke up that morning believing that we had dodged a bullet. There was water in the street, but nothing significant. And then sometime around 10, 11 o'clock, I had some ladies on the staff working in the office downstairs. I heard this horrific scream because I was on the second floor. Wow. And I'm running down the stairwell, and as I'm getting to the first floor, I just see water coming into the building. So we, at that point in time, we moved our first floor operation up to the second floor. And
what was the force of the water like rushing into the building?
well, it just was, just water rising, and we're like, you kind of were almost in shock because we were like, whoa, after last night, we kind of dodged a bullet. We just got, a little bit of water in the street, and that suddenly changed.
When you heard the scream, what did you think?
I didn't know what was going on because I hadn't had the opportunity to look outside at that point in time. Mm-hmm. I just heard the screams, and I just ran downstairs to see what was going on.
And when you saw all the water?
I was like, whoa. We relocated the operation to the second floor where we had prepared, we had food, water, we had generators, because we were prepared to stay a couple days, just figuring, we would have to make emergency repairs and that type of thing. So we didn't know what had actually occurred because there was no cell phone communication. All cell phones were rendered useless. The water board radio system was pretty much destroyed at that point in time. So we had no way to get information from anywhere. So we just, I think some people's cell phones were working, and we were hearing different things, like there was a major water main break in City Park. We have a huge water main that runs through City Park. And
so you thought that might be where the water was coming from?
We thought, we were like, well, that's not a big deal. We can go fix it, We can go fix it. And I think as the hours passed by, we didn't see the conditions improving. And my first thought was, we have a pumping station next door to Central Yard. So I told everybody, look, just calm down. I said, when these guys do their business, we'll be able to get out of here. And at that point, the folks next door said, look, the storm had ripped off parts of the roof, and all the electrical components were damaged inside the station. They said, there's no pumping going to be going on. I'm like, whoa. Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, we were literally cut off from communication. Ms. St. Martin and Mr. Sullivan, to our information, were in City Hall or in the main office, but we had no way to get in touch with anyone. So the days passed. Days passed. And if I remember correctly, now this was, 10 years ago, there were some local residents that were stranded on the overpass behind the building at Central Yard. And they had rescue units coming in, to rescue folks in the neighborhood. So I believe it might have been like Thursday or Friday. I can't remember which day. But anyway, one of the rescue boats came to the foot of the overpass, and we signaled them with flashlights.
Wow.
We're over here.
Was this during the evening time?
This was at night.
Okay.
This was at night, and I always tell people you can't imagine how dark it is with no street lights. I mean, it is dark. So anyway, the rescue boat came over, and he said, "Look," he said, "I'm the last boat out," because some of the people that were with me, they were pretty shaken up.
There was a sense of panic.
There was a sense of panic because after 2 or 3 days, conditions started to deteriorate. You can't use bathrooms, things like that. So they see the food supply dwindling, water dwindling, and a sense of panic is starting to set in, and they're afraid to leave. They're not comfortable where they are, but they're afraid to leave. So the rescue captain told me, he said, "Look," he said, "I'm the last boat out. If you don't get on this one, I can't tell you what's gonna happen." I'm like, everybody out the building. And we had Surgeon Waterboard employees next door at Station D, what we call Station D. I said, "Look, we had to get those guys also." Those guys were pretty shaken up. They didn't know who we were, until I called out to them and told them, "Come on, come with us." We were told that we would be taken to I-10 and Louisa. And from there, we will be transported by bus to the convention center. So I'm like, everybody, come on, let's go. We got to go. When we get to I-10 and Louisa, no buses.
Oh man.
No buses. We're in the back of pickup trucks, and it was. That
was pretty scary.
It was pretty scary. It was pretty scary leaving Central Yard going to I-10 and Louisa because you really couldn't see. The only light that we had was the light on the captain's helmet, and some of my guys had flashlights. But we don't dwell on it, but we did see, the result of the storm, meaning we saw bodies, and so that
didn't make you feel too comfortable.
Not at all, not at all. It's like you don't know what to expect in the next moment. So when we got there and didn't see buses, we're like, okay, what now? So they packed us in the back of pickup trucks with other residents that had been rescued from the neighborhood, and they brought us to the convention center, and it was chaotic. Absolutely chaos, right? So I said, there's no way I can sleep in here. I went out to the curb. Actually, there were 2 police officers across the street at one of the hotels. So I went over there and I talked to them, and I told them who I was. And for some strange reason, I had that ID around my neck. I kept that ID around my neck at all times, So I told them I was trying to get in touch with Miss St. Martin or Mr. Sullivan, because I had a group of employees that were at a drainage pumping station in New Orleans East that I could not talk to. I didn't know if they survived or what.
So you were really worried?
I was really worried. And the police officer told me, he said, "Look, man, things are deteriorating very, very rapidly." He said, "I suggest, you try to get across the river." I said, "I'm a step ahead of you." That was my plan. As soon as the sun came up in the morning, I was going to go across the river. And just by a stroke of luck, I saw a guy I went to high school with who was at the convention center to locate his parents. I said, "Look, man, if I have to ride on a bumper, just get me to the other side of the river." And fortunately, we crossed the bridge before Gretna pulled that act. So at that point in time—
Meaning before the police blocked it off.
Yeah, exactly. At that point in time, I had forgot all about the West Bank Algiers water plant. And I saw a resident on the West Bank, and we started talking. I told him, you know, what I do, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, well, my uncle worked for the water board. I said, yeah, who's your uncle? And he told me, Isaac. I said, bingo, I'm going to the water plant. Little did I know when I got there that they would pull guns on me, you know.
They pulled guns on you when you got there?
Yeah, because the West Bank water plant was on lockdown. Okay. They had a military contingent in the plant, and they didn't want any outsiders coming in. So I was like, brother came down the steps and said, "Oh, he's with us." Like, I'm like, just let me in, you know. So at that time, I was able to. They told me that Miss St. Martin was upstairs and she needed to talk to me. I'm like, I gotta find a shower first, you know. I had been, you know, about a week or so. I couldn't, you know. It was like.
You were totally grungy.
I was totally grungy, man. It was rough, and I think what happened, Miss St. Martin had been sending one of our employees to the convention center to locate people. And at that point in time, all the folks that were with me that were not put on planes and buses to leave town came to the West Bank plant. And at that point in time, we established a workforce to try to put this thing back together. So it was an arduous 3, 4, 5, 6 days in the immediate aftermath.
And all this time, did you know that the levees had breached?
Well, we did. We found that out probably right before the rescue boat came. We just started.
Right before?
Yeah, right before. That was probably.
And how did you put that together?
We were getting bits and pieces of information, you know, and the fact that we were right in between the London Avenue Canal and the Industrial Canal. So you know,
you got it.
We got it from both ways. We got it from both ways. And during the days while we were sitting in Central Yard waiting to figure out what was going on, we were using the railroad as a gauge of, you know, want to see the water drop so we can hit the track and get out of here. Never happened. So we had to break camp, and when we got to Algiers is when we started the recovery process right away.
So what did you do to benefit or aid the recovery once you got to Algiers, where it was dry?
When we got to Algiers, we had minimal equipment, minimal material. However, I think on an average day, the Algiers water plant produces about 10 million gallons. At that time, they were doing 20 million gallons. They were doing double their production.
Double what they normally would do.
Because of damages from the storm. The West Bank did not flood. However, there was tremendous damage from trees being uprooted and pulling up water lines, pulling up sewer lines. So we were directed by Ms. St. Martin and Mr. Sullivan, look, go fix it. Do what you do, go fix it. And it took us probably, I'm gonna say maybe about a week and a half, we started bringing that production down to its normal rate. And from that point, the Algiers water plant provided water to the East Bank. You had a lot of recovery workers living in the hotels downtown CBD.
So you had to get water to them.
We had to get water to them. So the Algiers water plant was point central for all work activity.
So that became your staging area to make the recovery possible.
Yes, sir. That became our staging area until I think it was May of 2006 when we moved back to Central Yard in a limited fashion. But yes, sir, that was our staging area for quite some time.
What was your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was providing or trying to restore water service to the area. We didn't have a lot of people back, but we still had to provide fire protection. We still had to provide water services to the areas that were occupied. And on top of it, while you working, you still thinking about your personal situation. I think that was the biggest challenge during the whole event was, we dedicated to the Sewage and Water Board.
No question.
No question. We dedicated to our family, and many of us lost family members. So that's on your mind while you're going through your daily work. And we literally worked, I'm gonna say 14, 16, 18 hours a day for at least 3 months. We didn't get a break. I don't remember getting a break until around Thanksgiving.
Wow.
That's 7 days, 16, 18 hours. I mean, literally dead on your feet. But we restoring water service every day.
So you don't really have time to think a lot about your personal.
You certainly don't. You certainly don't. And dealing with FEMA and dealing with FEMA on a professional level through your job, dealing with FEMA on a personal level, it's difficult. And you're talking about stacks of paper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So my hat goes off to the people that worked with me, under my supervision, and the people that I reported to. I mean, they kept our head in the game, and at the same time allowed us to tend to our personal business. And that was a difficult task. It really was.
I can imagine. How did you mentioned that some people lost family members. Mm-hmm. In what situations did that happen? How did it happen? And how did they deal with it?
Well, they lost family members in the immediate aftermath of the storm due to flooding. Just a lot of people couldn't get their medication. So after days without their medication, they just succumbed to health issues, And some of our guys really took it hard. And we were provided at some point in time with mental health services. Mm-hmm. My hat goes off to Ms. St. Martin and Mr. Sullivan because they really, cared for the employees while we were trying to, restore the system. So many of our guys had to use these counseling services to deal with with everything that was going on.
Your heart went out to them.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think it was maybe 2 months after we had been working every day. Mayor Nagin came in and said, "Look, we're gonna give you guys a break, 2-3 days. Put us on a plane and have some R&R," and that helped. That helped. So I volunteered to let everybody go before I went, mm-hmm. and when it came time for my turn, that's when they stopped it. That's when they stopped it. But so I think it was around Thanksgiving when we kind of throttled down just a little bit, where we went back to like 10-hour days, or So, but it was a tremendous amount of work, and it was a tremendous amount of heartache. Just dealing with everything. It was difficult.
How did you think the actions of your employees after the storm helped the Sewage and Water Board begin to recover?
The employees of the Sewage and Water Board that worked through the storm were able to restore service. That's our job. That's our mission. And I know there were predictions that it would take months to drain the city. The Water Board knocked that out. And then my group, we provided water service to the entire area in a step-by-step process. And that means that you have to make repairs to maintain water pressure and just keep going. And one of the biggest challenges we had was that you have to maintain water pressure to fight fires. A lot of people don't think about that until that time, but we were up against it, trying to maintain enough pressure to fight fires. Fire department was utilizing helicopters with huge bags. They would dip the bags down in the river, and dump it on the fire, because we were not stabilized at that point. But once we got stabilized, we were able to, restore service. So that was a big part of it. My group that was stationed at one of the pump stations in New Orleans East literally ran up and down Haynes Boulevard rescuing people out of Little Woods, because I kept, every day I would ask, has anybody been able to talk to my guys? And we got word from the National Guard and other people, look, man, you got a yellow truck running up and down Haynes rescuing folk. I'm like, that's my guys, they're good. So, and they even had people taking shots at them while they were doing this.
For what reason?
For a lot of people blamed us for the flooding. People were not,
they just didn't know.
They just didn't know. So we got a lot of that. But that didn't deter us.
You kept going in spite of the challenge.
We kept going in spite of the challenge. We had what they call themselves, the Texas Rangers, I believe. They were in town as part of law enforcement. And where they were housed, there was some kind of water issue or sewer issue. I got a phone call, Rudy, can you go over there and help them out? So get over there and we'll see what the situation is. And so we start taking care of it. And one of the Texas Rangers come out. He said, y'all don't have any weapons? Because it was chaotic. It was chaotic. He said, no, man, we just doing our thing. He said, well, look, from this point forward, you got armed guard going wherever you go.
Wow.
Cool. Cool.
You didn't mind that?
I didn't mind that at all. So, yeah, while we working, you got all this stuff going on around you. I mean, people were desperate.
It was a dangerous time.
And it was dangerous time, so. But, I mean, Brenda and Rob would have a hard time getting me to talk. I'm just about to work, so, but it was an experience that will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Why are you so dedicated to the Sewage and Water Board?
Well, that's all I know. And that's what I was taught by the people that preceded me. And, I've been working at the water board now 32, 33 years. So, all I know is the water board.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, what number would you assign to the importance of the Sewage and Water Board to the city of New Orleans?
Plus 10, 10 plus. Without the Sewage and Water Board, there would be no city of New Orleans. People take for granted water service, sewer service, drainage, and you cannot function without either of those services. Water service is essential to life. And, people complain about a leak here, a leak there, but at the end of the day, everybody has water. That is, that's our job, and we take our job seriously.
Last question. How would you describe the progress made post-Katrina in the rebuilding of the Sewage and Water Board system?
Tremendous. It's ongoing. With assistance from FEMA, with the guidance and leadership, Ms. St. Martin, Mr. Sullivan, that recovery was started almost immediately. So it's a work in progress.
But it's work that you're proud of.
Very proud.
The flooding of New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina was the most devastating disaster to hit any U.S. city. When most of the city was evacuating, some 300 Sewage and Water Board employees stayed on the job, facing great personal peril to respond to this devastating crisis. We salute our Katrina heroes who met the greatest challenge of their lives and found a way to rise above the storm and overcome the impact of Hurricane Katrina. The board's forces dewatered the city in 11 days after the breaches were closed and began to restore quality of life, services of water, sewer, and drainage to the city. It was the restoration of these services that made it possible for citizens to return. It was the restoration of these services that made it possible for progress to begin, going from devastation to recovery, restoration, and today, rebuilding of the most complex infrastructure in the country. Today, confidence in the Sewage and Water Board's management and fiscal responsibility has resulted in the first water and sewer rate increases since the 1990s. These increases will be the building blocks for the development and the continuous rebuilding of the board's systems in the future.